Danielle, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And I love having people that I don't know that well on. We have a lot of different guests, right? We have people that I've known for years. We have clients that I'm in-depth recruiting for. And then we have maybe more like you who I don't necessarily know. And it's good because I find that when I'm talking to clients on video or the phone or whatever, and it's in the workday, there's always other things in your head, right? It's really hard to sort of focus on one thing. But because we spend a day filming this show, everything else leaves me. So I really listen to it. So I actually learn a lot more when I'm doing this show about people than I do normally, which is probably not something I should admit. But anyway, let's talk about you. So Danielle, tell us about your business and then tell us a little bit about how you came to start that business.
Yeah, sure. I might do it the other way around, actually.
You can do it the other way around, absolutely.
It sort of makes a bit more sense. So my background is large corporates.
Yep.
So I'm a corporate gal, I guess. I used to run retail networks, call centres and large-scale transformation.
Yep.
Loved it. Loved helping people, loved delivering to customers, building teams of people, having them go on into great jobs. Loved all of it, but burnt out in 2016.
Wow.
Yeah, actually, wow, it was quite a surprise. Didn't see the warning signs.
You never do. That's one of the things with burnouts, right? Apparently.
That's the thing. That's what we've discovered.
Yeah.
So stepped out, had a bit of time out and started thinking about my situation. And I remembered that I used to see emails from my team that would say things like, here we go again, I don't want to do this anymore. And I would step in and help them. But obviously I didn't see that in myself and no one else saw that in me. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could just create that, automate that, and step in when someone needs help?
Yep.
So that's essentially what Pioneera does. So we call ourselves the Grammarly for mental health.
I remember now, you told me that before. I think it's so cool. I love that.
Well, actually, someone said that to me one night. They said, is this what you do? And I'm like, oh my God, that's totally what we do. So we connect to email and chat systems and we look for the early warning signs of stress and wellness and burnout in your behaviour and your language. And when we see that, we send you a recommendation. And that's all done in a private, confidential, personalised way. So no one sees that data except for you, so you can feel safe. And then we give organisations aggregated trends and insights because the organisations are creating the system that's driving that. So we want to help change that system. So we give them the feedback so they don't need to keep asking for it.
So I remember I met you through Balance the Grind, right? You came on Balance the Grind. And I remember you telling me about this business and I remember thinking that is just such a... Because we've had a few mental health companies, but nothing like this, nothing like this. So essentially, if I'm correct in thinking, because I think this is so cool, it monitors your tone of voice, your feeling, your expression in the way that you're writing your emails and documents and sending them to people. And it uses AI, I'm assuming, to pick up on certain things. And if it sees patterns or warning signs, it then alerts the manager or alerts you or...
It alerts you. So it's private to you. No one sees your stuff except for you. So yeah, it alerts you. There's two ways of doing it. We have a live dashboard, so you can go if you want to self-serve and get your own data and your own recommendations. Or this week we've kicked off a pilot with the University of Sydney to send those proactive prompts. So we send in Slack, we say, hey Steve, how you doing? We notice you're having a tough time. Here are some things that might help.
That's fascinating. Now, I think there's a company that does this. Is it Atlassian or one of these has something like this inbuilt into their system as well? I remember someone else talking to me. It's not as advanced as yours, but it's a similar sort of thing. They were trying to inbuild and automated, making sure, but I don't think it uses AI to pick up on your tone. So let's talk about that, the tech. Where did it come from? Did you discover it? Did you build it? I mean, that's not a simple piece of technology.
It's not. It's not as simple. Technology seems so simple, but it's
never seems simple to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So no, there are some components we've used. So, for example, we use Stanford University's sentiment analysis tool because we think it's pretty good. So some of that exists, but a lot of it we've had to build. So we basically have a model that uses words that are used in a workplace context. So we've scored those with a psychologist and we use that as part of our scoring system. We look at linguistic indicators that indicate mental being. So, for example, when we get stressed, we withdraw, so we use more individual pronouns. So we've built all that sort of stuff. We've built thresholds. So what we do is when you connect to the system, we take a couple of weeks to baseline you. So we kind of get what we think is your average kind of
like a fitness tracker does.
Exactly. And then when you move outside of that zone, we have a whole lot of thresholds and then a whole lot of triggers. So we've built all of that. And that's actually the thing that we're testing with the University of Sydney this week or this month. And the whole idea is to help you stay in that productive well, mentally healthy zone. So
it's insane. I find this so insane. So, okay, you burn out in 2016. Then suddenly, and you've been running call centers and digital transformations. The next thing you know, you're taking sentiments off of Stanford University and building a piece of technology. You kind of missed the gap in the middle. How do you go from running call centers and digital transformations, which are essentially process-driven environments, to one, working out the Stanford University's sentiment software is the best, and then two, building on top of that to build Grammarly for mental health? How does that happen? That's such an insane jump.
It's, it didn't feel like an insane jump.
It sounds it to me. It sounds huge.
I think, so when I kind of stepped out of the job that I was in, I had a bit of time off and I just had to recover and kind of all that sort of stuff. And then when I wasn't focused on my job, this whole world opened up that I didn't even realise exists. And I was reading and I was talking to people and I was sort of trying to process my experience by hearing from other people. And what I started to do was research. I didn't even realise I was doing kind of that start of the user and the customer experience research. And then I found a fantastic technology person who came on to be my CTO. So I had the vision of what I want the product to do, what I want the experience to be, the change we want to create in organisations. And he's helped build that from a technology point of view. Yeah, so that's how we kind of came together.
Amazing. Amazing. So when did you actually start? When was the business launched?
2018.
2018. So you're three years old, roughly 2.5, 3 years old.
Yeah.
And when did you launch the product?
So we had, so I started, because I'm a corporate person and not a startup person, I started with the She Starts program that was run by Blue Chili. So we actually had a couple of MVPs as part of that in 2018. And ANZ Bank, who was a sponsor of the program, who are amazing and have continued to be a customer of mine, big shout out for ANZ, they tested a few parts of the product as part of that. And then we went off and we kind of refined it and tweaked and stuff like that. So we kind of launched our enterprise product in 2019.
With ANZ?
Yes, with ANZ, and then with a couple of other companies that we had lined up for pilots. And then this small little thing called COVID happened in 2020, and all of the large enterprises just were in crisis mode, as we can understand. So that all kind of stopped. So over the period of last year, we pretty much created a small business product because we had a lot of small businesses asking us for help.
Yes.
They really didn't know what to do. They're not experts in leading people. They don't have the coaching and leadership training we get in corporates. So we pretty much created that last year and we launched it at the beginning of this year. And so we've had really good take up in our SME product, and now all of the corporates are starting to come back and say,
they would be.
Yeah.
And look, I think it's unbelievably important to the startup space as well. Have I talked to you about getting you on the ecosystem? Have we got you on our ecosystem for our website?
I think we just went on just last week.
Yeah. Because I just think it's such an important topic. I love the fact you started in the She Starts program. We had Luther from Blue Chili on the show, and he talked about that shit, and that was the first time I'd ever heard about it. So he was a massive fan of that. So it's good to see that companies coming out of those things and working.
Yeah, it was a great program.
Yeah, that's good. I'm pleased. So, okay, so here we are. Gosh, and your timing in some respects, COVID, how do you pick that? I think the interesting thing, COVID has very much helped my business as well, because I think the startup space has grown, and I think it's helped the ecosystem of the startup ecosystem because of the way people are behaved and starting to see the world differently. But where do you go with this product, other than obviously pushing it out and launching it? Do you have a roadmap? Do you have some ideas as to what else you can do with it? Because I imagine it's almost infinite. My mind's racing right now. And this is the first time I've ever had any sort of headspace to think about it.
Yeah.
Where is it? Where is it in your head at the moment?
Look, it is really infinite, and I think that there's pros and cons to that. So what I've tried to do is be focused on how do we do it step by step logically.
Yeah.
COVID was, of course, completely unexpected.
Yep.
What wasn't unexpected, though, is that work was changing. So we knew that flexible work and stuff like that was coming into organisations. The push for productivity is driving more burnout. All of the stats were going in that direction. COVID just kind of accelerated that. So we say we see that we play really nicely into the future of work, into hybrid working, into flexible working. And we think there's kind of exponential growth opportunities in that particular space. What most companies need now and what most employees are demanding is personalised leadership. So people are saying, I want to work my way and you want to work your way, and they're different ways. And for companies, it's really hard to deliver that, particularly at scale. So we can help them deliver some of that at scale. So we think that's a great opportunity.
Absolutely.
The other thing about COVID is that mental health now is being talked about
a lot more
openly. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be as much of a stigma against it.
I think the stigma's gone almost completely. Well, maybe that's a bit sweeping statement, but I think, I think there's still an element of people who don't talk about it, but it's not. you don't see people going when people bring it up, at all. It's becoming a really important thing. I think it's become acceptable that it exists. If it's acceptable to admit that it exists, whereas perhaps it wasn't before.
I totally agree. And I think there's a spectrum between, when we talk about mental health. So we're playing at the sort of this end of the spectrum where we're trying to prevent issues from happening. We're catching it early. We're allowing the person to self-regulate psychologically. Then you've got mental ill health at the other end of the spectrum.
Another problem.
Yeah, exactly. And what we're trying to do is, I guess, where we can prevent that from escalating. And I think people are talking more readily about that now. Absolutely.
Yeah. Have you thought about trialling it in schools?
I would love to do it in schools.
I think that would be incredible.
Yeah, particularly for things like bullying. So we love the idea of expanding this into bullying and harassment, unconscious bias. There's a lot of bias in workplaces, risk-taking behaviour, reward and recognition.
Social media posting, if you could, put it to that. I mean, one of the reasons I say that, I have a 13-year-old daughter, 11-year-old boy, and they've been really good during COVID, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely affected them. There's no question it has affected them. I can see that, and they've said things that have, not necessarily shocked me, but you don't realise they're such young minds. You forget how easily influenced they are.
Yeah.
And having seen a pandemic and having seen this global change and lockdowns and all these things, I can't even imagine what it must be like to be, particularly 11, 13, very, very smart enough to know what's going on, but still so young. I can't even imagine what impact it's done on them. And as if they don't have enough problems with social media as it is.
Exactly.
So, that's just a huge, exciting area. That would be awesome.
Yeah, we'd love to do that. If there's any schools out there that want to talk to us, we would love to
absolutely
start working in that. And even also helping the teachers in the classrooms as well. There's lots of opportunity to support that stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The hard thing is then if the children actually get these messages that they tell someone about it or they actually, that's probably the hardest part.
Yeah.
All right. So I always ask everyone this question, and I can't even fathom what you're going to answer to this question because I imagine there's lots. So it's an exciting question. Building a business is not easy. And being a founder and your own boss is not easy and all those sorts of things. And, if you get burnt out in the corporate world, there's a different kind of pressures and stresses when you're a founder. What's been the hardest thing for you so far? And I always find that there's always a massive positive out of it. Like the hardest thing you go through as a founder always has usually one of the biggest positives to the business.
Yeah.
So far out of your journey, and I'm sure there will be more, unfortunately, but there will be. What's been the biggest thing?
I think the hardest thing is when you start a business and you're trying to solve a problem, you're very emotionally connected to the problem and to the business, which is a little bit different than when you're working for someone else. You're committed and stuff like that, but possibly not as emotionally connected. And it's my idea. This is kind of my baby I'm bringing into the world. So I think the hardest thing, and I sometimes I do this well and sometimes I don't, is that I kind of have to separate myself from the business and not take things personally.
Yep.
So if I talk to an investor and they don't want to invest, rather than feel totally rejected as a person, I have to be objective and go, okay, maybe it's this or maybe it's that. So, and sometimes I do that well and sometimes I don't. But that's probably the thing that I've struggled with the most, and the propensity to just kind of work like a demon because you've got a lack of resources and you've got a lot of motivation. So I do have to put some firm boundaries and You
don't want to go back to burnout.
No.
No, you do not want to go back to burnout. By trying to cure burnout, you don't want to create your own burnout.
I know. And I think in the startup world, because we're told to hustle.
I hate that word.
I think it's really negative. You drive people to a certain behaviour. I think that's particularly prevalent.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay. So if we think about your business, I guess, is there any story, and I imagine that I'm trying to think of the right way to word this because obviously there's a lot of privacy around what you do. Is there a success story that you can talk about where maybe someone has shared with you how this tool has changed their lives or saved them or something, or would you never know about that? Or I assume all the data's there, as much as it would be de-identified, you'd still have data, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But we don't get into the details of the data because we protect people's privacy as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's why I was trying to work out if you had a story or not, because I don't know if you would know one.
So I have a couple because I have stayed pretty close to our customers. The beauty of being an early stage startup is that, I can talk to most of our customers. And actually, now that we're getting more customers that I can't engage with, or we're having customers buy online that I've never met, it's harder because I want to call them and go, how are you going? Like, what do you think? Tell me. But this is some of our early customers I've stayed close to. So we've got some great stories. So one of the teams are working with an ANZ's improved their engagement by 10% in the last year, even with everything that's going on. So that's a great story. We've had other people that have called me to say, oh my God, we ran this emotional intelligence workshop and look at the results for the team. Had another person that felt like they were sliding into burnout, but they started looking at the data and taking the recommendations on, and they called me just lit up because they said that they had prevented that. So we have got some good stories there.
I imagine that you could use it as well as a manager. Like, I think if you suddenly realise that everyone in the business is great except for the ones working for you, then maybe you're a factor in that and things like that. I don't know, but I guess I don't know if you know that. Yeah, I guess the privacy part of it's quite difficult, isn't it? But people can share, of course, if they want to.
People can share if they choose to.
Yeah.
What we give managers and managers of managers, I've had a few people say that they like, if I'm a manager that manages someone that has teams, they like to be able to see what's going on in that, skip level below.
Yeah.
We give a sense, like we give trends and a sense of that, so you can see when, is the team super stressed at a certain time. We find team meetings cause stress. Pretty much in most of our customers, we've seen that. We've also seen the impact of the leader on the team. So I've had 3 instances where I've been sitting on the phone call with a leader or a CEO of a business, and we've been going through the team data, and we've seen a big spike in stress like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then we go to their personal dashboard, they pull it up and show me, and that's the same pattern is there. So they're the ones driving the team stress. And they've had this like, oh my God, is that me? Am I doing this to the team? Look at my emails. Do I look stressed in my emails? They pull up their emails and they're showing me their emails. So we've seen the leader impact on the team. In one instance, then the next day there was a big spike of stress, which I'm assuming is the team coming in and seeing the emails from the leader. So we've seen that, which is a very interesting pattern.
Well, emails, everyone, you get it on your phone, right? I'm a big... We've got offices all over the world now, so I kind of work 24/7. I take time off in the day because I'll work at night for the UK office and things like that. So I send a lot of emails outside of normal business hours to my team here in Australia. Now, I'm lucky in the fact that my team here have all worked for me before, so they know me very well. But I've always said to them, I never expect them to look at it. I don't expect them to answer and all that kind of stuff. But I think they probably do. And now I've just noticed that Outlook has started popping up a little yellow bar when I'm sending an email saying, why don't you send this in the morning? And I'm struggling with this because I want to send it now because I'll forget in the morning, but I don't want to stress my team out. But I tell them not to, and I don't know if I'm not. I don't know if I am. I'm not. And now Outlook's telling me I am, and I'm like, oh my God, now I'm so stressed. So it's a funny tool, email, because to me it's almost like a note taking. I send myself emails, countless emails all day. I don't use like a note system. I'd rather just send myself an email because then I can logically work things. It's just how my brain works.
Yeah,
but not everyone's like me, of course. So it would be interesting to have a tool like that could say, okay, that is actually having an effect on your team, even though you don't want it to, and you're doing it because it suits you, it doesn't suit them. So, yeah.
That's kind of what we're helping leaders see, because there's 2 things. There's what we say and what we do. So whilst you say you don't expect people to respond and people kind of go, yes, logically, then we see the behaviour and then we tend to respond to the behaviour. So that's what the system is good. It actually shows you the behaviour so you can do something about it.
You're terrifying me now.
There are scheduling tools, in Outlook, so you can do it at night but schedule it to go the next morning.
Yes, I know. I need to look into that.
I had this instance before I burnt out at my last job where I was doing that, and I had my team members then responding to me at 12 and 1, and I'm like, why are you doing that? I've told you not to. And they said, well, you're doing it, so why can't I do it? So
I've had that scenario where some people have said, well, I want to work at that time as well. It's like, oh, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Yeah.
Well, our data will show if it's creating stress. Sometimes it's super productive. So we see stress and wellness at the same time, and our customers are telling us it's a period of productive work. So we're researching this with the University of Sydney to see if we can get language indicators of productivity. So in that instance, it might be productive and that's okay, but we see that in short bursts, not long chronic periods.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I assume it's just if if someone wanted to buy this, you buy it at a company level and it's just done per user.
Yes.
That sort of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Now, you mentioned COVID. Obviously, no one saw this coming. I've got a 2-part question here. So the first part's quite heavy. Second part's a little light.
Okay. I'll prepare myself.
Yeah, prepare yourself. Your stress levels is just spiked.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have noticed as a recruiter is, and I think we actually did talk about this, is that candidates have changed the questions they're asking me. So what has become important to them has fundamentally changed. And it's not 1 or 2 people, it's across the board. It's almost 100%, I would say. And it has changed from things such as pay. Pay's still up there, but it's gone down again. It was never the top. But what used to be top was opportunity for learning and how this role was going to take me to my next role. Everyone was very future focused. They were seeing everything as a stepping stone. And that used to annoy employees, but it was the way the world was. They're not asking that now. They're not looking at their next role as a stepping stone to something else. And I don't know whether it's conscious or subconscious, but they are wanting to do something that gives them a sense of meaning. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean working for an organization like yours that has a very sense of meaning or a charity. It just means they want to be able to see some sort of impact from what they're doing in their day job. So if they go to their job and they get paid and it's helping them get to their dream job, they used to be happy. Now that's not enough. They care more about how they spend their time, and they want to see some sort of something happen for the sake of them doing that. So that's a fundamental change that I think has happened across the world. So my question is, have you had a belief that has changed during this time? And it could be because of pandemic, or it could be because you founded your own business. But is there something that you believe, this is always a really interesting question, that is now perhaps not completely turned on its head, but has changed? Because it's hard for people to change their beliefs. It does happen, but it's not something that happens easily. It's not like changing your mind, right? And if you can't think of one, that's okay. But
no, look, I can, and it sort of started before the pandemic, but became clearer during the pandemic.
Yep.
When I left my corporate gig, I left a good corporate role that earned me a lot of money and allowed me to buy designer shoes, and which my mum would. That's not these ones. My mum would die actually if she heard me say that, and not literally, but I had a lot of resources, right, and it was great, and I'd be able to do that. And then when I left the job, I was adamant that I needed to find another job that provided me that amount of financial security, and I couldn't think of anything else that wasn't providing that level of financial security. And then as time went on, and as I've started reading and expanding my mind and thinking about options, that kind of became less important, because I started to think about, well, what will I do with that? Like, what can I do with that financial security that I can't do with other things? And so my focus started shifting away from the dollars more towards the purpose and what am I kind of here to do? And that became more obvious during COVID, because we were looking to get investment and stuff in the business at the beginning of COVID, and then COVID happened and we're trying to raise money now. And when I get caught up in all of the financial aspects and using money to validate my success, I start to go down a very unhealthy rabbit warren.
Yeah.
So I try and have sort of multiple benchmarks. So yeah, that's kind of my experience.
It's interesting. I've had this conversation with a lot of people who've left quite high-paying corporate jobs to go into the startup world, and a lot of them have come back to me and said, what I've realized is that all those things that I love buying was because I felt that there was a gap in my life and I filled it by buying things. But now I've got this purposeful thing. I actually don't have that desire to buy them as much as I did, because I've got other things that are occupying my headspace.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of true. All right, cool.
Yeah.
That's a good one. And then the more fun one is habits. So being in lockdown on and off, not being allowed to go outside of 5Ks, all those wonderful, wonderful things, and picnics, which I hate. I hate picnics. I never liked picnics anyway. Now I was forced to have them. I really hate them.
No, you have to have them. Yeah.
But outside of, well, we don't need more, thank goodness. But is there any new habit that you have developed during the last couple of years that's a result of basically the way we've changed in the way we live our lives?
I'm thinking positive
hopefully it's a good one.
I was going to say not negative.
Don't say
habits.
drinking.
No. Actually, no. Actually, it's one thing that we definitely haven't done. We've been.
That's good.
Yeah. We're kind of aware of that. Actually, having to get dressed properly and that was today. I was like, oh my God, and I came downstairs and my kids were like, oh my God, Mum, you're all dressed up.
Where are you going?
Where are you going? Like, leaving the house was such a shock. So I think the one thing actually I've loved about homeschooling is that I've got 2 kids as well, 15 and 12, and my partner has 2 older kids who are like 19 and 21. So we've had the kids around.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, but it's been great. We've had breakfast together, we've had lunch, so our kind of dining table becomes a communal lunch table, and I think I've loved having that connection. I think we've missed that connection, so that has been wonderful. So we've had some habits pop up around that. So I don't go and sit at my desk first thing in the morning and start working. I have breakfast with the kids. We have a whiteboard in the kitchen that we wanted to actually write sort of chores and stuff on. It became this crazy thing that everyone draws and writes stupid notes on. So we've had some fun ways of connecting, I think. And I found that people in my house in particular, because we took the attitude that we can't change it, we might as well just make the most of it. Yep. Everyone kind of relaxed a bit. There wasn't running around to get to sports and, piano and whatever. So people relaxed a bit. So we have had a pretty good time, actually.
Yeah, I have to say I was never a fan of the ridiculous schedule my children had. I thought it was too much. I think, though, I miss the Saturday sport. I actually really do. I used to love watching that. I'm actually looking forward to that coming back. I hope that when we get back to complete normality in terms of the way we actually live, that we'll have a lesser schedule, because I think it's been healthy for everyone, not just children, just to have time to do nothing.
I agree.
Because we didn't. I know I didn't. And I know, and you would know as a parent with children who can't drive, if any time you do have time to do nothing, they want you to take them somewhere to do something anyway. So, yeah, I think that's a good one. I think that's not. I think that whole reconnection thing's been quite good. I've liked it in the community as well. I don't know about you, but I've got to know a lot more people. I know a lot of the parents from our school live around where we live, and I've got to know a lot of them better than I would have ever, because we couldn't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
So it has created a funny sense of community, which is definitely a positive.
Yeah, I agree. And talk to our neighbours, because we can't go anywhere. So we just stand outside like 2 metres apart from each other and have a chat, So yeah, it's been good in that respect.
Cool. Now you mentioned raising money, and you're raising money now. Fun thing to do.
I was going to say, oh God.
How have you found it? Because it's, as a founder, it's probably the only time you're going to do that. It's very rare for anyone in a job, even if you work in a startup, to really be involved in fundraising. And it's not a skill you get taught at school. And it's not, unless you've been in banking or some sort of corporate advisory, it's just not a skill you have.
Yeah.
And it's a brutal process. And as you said, there's an enormous amount of rejection. It's almost like starting your first ever sales job again, right? How have you found it so far?
Look, I think it's up and down, to be perfectly honest. I've learnt a lot, though, and I've learnt that I probably wasn't anywhere near as strategic or organised as I should be. Not that I'm not organised. I'm an organised person. I didn't know, to your point, like we weren't taught how to capital raise at school. So I didn't know that I'm not I'm not a banker. So I've learnt now that I look back on it, okay, these are the 3 or 4 things that would have made the process faster and easier. So that's a good thing for next time around. I've met lots of great people, actually, and I've got some really good advice. I guess the thing I'd say is that my experience is that there's investors in 2 camps. There's some that just say no or don't say anything, actually, don't get back to you. And then there's others that are actually really helpful and they give you feedback and they're great. And I've met a couple of investors just recently, today, in fact. One woman gave me really good feedback. This is what I'd say and this is why and this is what you should do. And so that's been very, very helpful. So I think all in all, it's, if you can manage your own emotional state, I think, through it, and get the help. So I now know what I need to do to set up for next time around, how to do that properly.
So tell us what those if you could name 3 things. So if there's a lot of founders, like I said, that watch this that are quite early stage. We do a lot of early stage work. So if there's someone who's thinking they're going to go into their first capital raise, what are the most basic things that perhaps you learnt that they might not know?
Yeah, so what I learnt yesterday, actually, from someone who was an ex-banker, he said you need to look at your capital like you'd look at your business plan. So you should have a capital plan, you should have a capital strategy like you have a product strategy or a sales strategy. Okay, that's useful. He said, and break the capital into 2 areas, into dilutive and non-dilutive. And then you say, okay, what do you need and when do you need it and how do you need that to fund the business? So I thought that actually was very helpful advice, and also start to plan 6 to 12 months out. So start to identify the sort of investors you need at different stages. And not everyone needs to raise. I think that's the thing. We go into startups thinking, okay, we'll start it and then we'll do a seed round and then we'll do a Series A. There's lots of different ways of doing that without having to go for a capital raise. So I think that's important to understand. And then if you're planning that 12 months out, then you get a list of who are the right people to invest for the stage that you're at. You have a chance to meet them, to grow a relationship with them. So they're the things that I would have taken into this time around. We kind of half did that, but we had a couple of investors drop out early on, and then it sort of left us high and dry because I hadn't had the pipeline set up that I should have. So,
and it's an ongoing thing. And you're right, there are a lot of options. Crowdfunding has become certainly. It depends on your product. From my view, for crowdfunding can be great if you've got the right product where that crowd is going to be involved in that product. Venture debt, most people don't even know what venture debt is. And if you don't know what it is, we're not going to talk about it now, but look it up because it's quite a big space. It's growing a lot here now at the moment, I've noticed. There are a lot of options.
Yeah. You need to have enough revenue to get to venture debt. So for some early stages, that's hard. So I think, the non-dilutive is interesting. So there's grants and there's competitions and stuff like that.
There's a lot of grants, and I would encourage anyone who's doing grants to find someone who's good at writing grants to do that, because otherwise you'll just waste your time. It's like it's an art form. It's like putting in an immigration form or something like that. You go to an immigration lawyer when you do that to make sure you get the right result. I think the same thing with grants, and they'll tell you if you're going to get it or not as well. They know.
Yeah, I think absolutely.
Because they can be a little bit mystical, grants, I think.
And it takes a lot of time and effort, and you want, if you're going to put the time and effort in, to get the grant at the end. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
All right, last question. So You're obviously going to be growing at some point.
I hope so.
Yeah, you will.
That's the plan, yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And you will have this video to show to people when you do that. So here, now, from your heart, tell me, why would someone want to come and work with you if you are hiring? So you're hiring a designer or a developer, it doesn't matter. Tell me what in your head, why would someone want to come and work with you guys?
We are actually hiring, by the way.
Go.
When I hire people, the first thing I look for is fit. So I just want to understand why do they want to work with us? Like, what is it about us? Is it about purpose? Is it about meaning? Are they passionate about mental health? Have they had a poor workplace experience that they're wanting to fix? So kind of that fit is really important.
Yep.
Why they would want to work for us is I sort of say to everyone, I can't promise you a job for life, but what I can promise you is that we will help develop you and build your capability that you can hopefully use with us, but otherwise you can take it and use it somewhere else.
Yep.
The beauty of an early stage startup is that you've got a lot of scope. So we've got people that have progressed really quickly. One of our devs started as a junior dev, is now a lead dev in a year and a half.
Yep.
So there's great opportunity. There's, everyone gets a chance in decision making. I don't sit in the corner and do the strategy and the roadmap. We do it all together.
Yep.
They come and sit in customer meetings. So there's a lot of opportunity. And it's kind of fun. So
it is fun. And I think you've hit it on the head. The opportunity to learn and progress is quicker than you will ever get anywhere else.
It's true.
And there's no hiding. So if you do progress, you progress because you had the ability and you showed the natural way of doing that. Sometimes people progress in corporates, as you would know, when perhaps they shouldn't.
Yeah.
That does not happen in startups because there's no hiding anywhere. Everyone can see what you're doing and how you're going. So it's a much more transparent environment.
And it's not for everyone. So we've had
Absolutely
a couple of people come and join us that just hasn't been the right thing for them. Startups weren't right, or the size of our company wasn't right, and so that's okay. It's not going to be the right thing for everyone.
No, we do a lot of education around with candidates about where they would fit. Do they fit in seed or Series A, or do they fit in the companies going to IPO? Because people don't fit everywhere, and very few people can fit along the whole journey.
Yeah.
It's a very rare skill set. So that's a really important thing people need to understand and take more time to learn, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And we've sort of built the foundation technology now. So next year we'll be looking to bring in people that can help us sell. We'll bring in product, information. So we will change the sorts of people that we need now too, as the product and the company evolves, to your point.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
I seriously, it still blows me away when I think about it. It's such a cool piece of technology.
Thank you.
And the potential, I really do hope you get it into schools, because the more aware we can make children of mental health and how they can combat it earlier on, that's a life skill that you can, that's just awesome, right? So there's some exciting times ahead. I'm going to look forward to watching.
Thank you. Thank you. And any help that you can give us would be well appreciated.
Of course.
So we can get into schools together. And thank you. Thank you for having us on. We are trying to raise this as kind of a serious issue for people to say you can do something about it. You don't have to work the way that we've worked before. We don't have to burn out and then do something about it afterwards. So thank you for giving us a chance to talk about it.
Pleasure.